This is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This phone is making big moves in the filmmaking and cinematography world, and coming from that perspective, I'll share my thoughts with you on this year's flagship iPhone. With the introduction of the Apple log format, I truly feel like Apple is the closest in the phone space to achieving the look we get in professional cinema cameras. Now, I don't think they're at the point of replacing them, but in this form factor with something you carry everywhere you go, they are competing with at least the lower end of cameras you would have started out with if you wanted to pursue this career. This is a great camera system to begin your journey with, but it does have some caveats you should consider that I'll talk about. Now, just so you know where I'm coming from before this upgrade, I've had the iPhone 11 Pro Max since it launched back in 2019. I actually got that phone to be my entry into filmmaking before getting my first actual camera in 2020. And just comparing the camera and video specs from that to now, I definitely think it was a worthy upgrade. And I don't think they're trying to sell you on this iPhone if you have the models from at least the previous 2 years, but that log format is something to pay attention to. This is probably the biggest selling point for cinematographers who always bring their camera with them everywhere they go, like I do. Instead of taking out my camera every time I want to get a quick shot or I'm out and about and find ideas I want to save for later, I can pull out my phone and get similar results, in most cases. And what goes with filming on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is the ability to not stand out while I'm shooting. Compared to filming on my camera, I'm not drawing as much attention to myself as people might just think I'm on my phone. Not only that, but it can also pair up nicely with the Sony a7 IV as a B camera if I needed a second POV or to use two cameras at once. I will create a separate video on color grading Apple log footage, but what I can say for now is, it is easy to correct and color this as S-Log3 footage. The dynamic range might not be as wide like more pro cameras, but with it being ProRes footage, it doesn't fall apart like 8-bit footage would, so coloring is still fun. I'll speak on the negatives on the footage later on in the video. Now, I can't forget to mention the new 5x optical zoom that has the focal length of a 120mm lens. But it's only an option with the Pro Max version of this year's lineup, not in the smaller Pro size, which will be a bummer for many. Compared to the only lens I own for my Sony body, the 24-70mm f2.8G Master, even in the cropped mode on this camera, I still can't reach as far as the 15 Pro Max can. Since I've started using the iPhone 15 Pro Max more to film, there is still something that feels funny to me when I'm shooting. The one thing about using a phone as a camera is that you're using a phone. What I mean is that if you enjoy the experience of using an actual camera, then this obviously isn't it for you. I do prefer having a camera body in my hands as I find it easier to get distracted if I'm using my phone. Obviously, it's not the end of the world, but it does make a difference in my creative process, as you also don't have as much control over how you capture your shots. Only using the camera app Apple provides is not enough as you are restrained to shooting mostly in auto. There's barely any control over the camera settings like you have in manual mode on cameras. Luckily, there are some great apps out there like the Blackmagic camera app. That allows for more professional features you see on cinema cameras, even more than my Sony a7 IV offers, which costs over double the price of this phone. And if you happen to watch Apple's last event on the new MacBook Pros, they filmed the entire thing using the iPhone 15 Pro Max in Apple Log, using the Blackmagic camera app, and that whole event just shows you when you know how to light, any camera can be your cinema camera. If you want to learn more about lighting, I have a whole video dedicated to cinematic lighting on my channel. Now, the way I like to use my phone for filming is more of a run and gun, everyday point and shoot type of camera. If I wanted to go full manual or a more professional feel, I'd probably gravitate more towards my camera than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But this app gives you the option to dive deeper into this system if you choose to. I just hope Apple adds more features to their base camera app so I don't have to download a third-party app for more. I think they should at least give us a way to view what we're filming better with a gamma display assist option like I have on the a7 IV, where it's easier to see how I'm exposing and how the footage will turn out after the conversion LUT is applied. They should also just have a settings page implemented within the camera app instead of needing to go into the settings app to change or customize the camera the way you want it to capture. So now with the new iPhones, we finally have USB-C not only for charging but also to connect an SSD drive so you can film directly to it. Even my Sony camera can't film directly to an SSD drive, even though it does have a USB-C port for faster charging. I've already mentioned some caveats and negatives about the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the video features, but here are some of the biggest things I haven't enjoyed as much or at all with this phone. Now, I've already mentioned that there's barely any flexibility in camera settings in their camera app, and in my opinion, I prefer the feel of using a camera body to film my work. A great addition to the general phone is the new action button, where you can change it from the mute button to, let's say, opening up the camera app to photo or video mode, but I found myself completely forgetting about it. It feels like it takes too long to activate the camera app from there, as pressing it from the lock screen just seems much faster, and you can't just simply press the action button, you have to hold it down a bit to get into the camera app. If it was faster or made into a simple press, it could be more useful and not miss the moments you wanted to capture. Also, maybe moving the action button to below the volume buttons could make it feel better to use. Speaking of the volume buttons, another issue I have is accidentally pressing the lower volume button when filming, which also starts and stops your recording. I don't know if it's this phone or the moment case I use, but the volume buttons feel really clicky and easy to press, and in the camera app, I'm constantly starting and stopping recordings accidentally when I'm trying to shoot. I just want to use the touchscreen to film and hold the phone in any way without worrying about stopping my recording. Another small negative you could say is, since the phone is smaller than a camera, the sensor size is also smaller, which leads to worse low light performance than an actual camera, especially compared to the Sony ones. Now, this isn't a huge deal, as I don't expect them to compete against full frame cameras, but it's worth mentioning. The better you light your scenes, the better and cleaner the footage will come out. And probably the last big negative I will say is, even though I genuinely enjoy using Apple Log, the file sizes are massive. Even way bigger compared to the Sony a7 IV. Since it is ProRes footage and log, it makes the most sense the files are big, but this makes it impossible to shoot 4K 60 in log without an SSD, and even in 24 and 30 frames, if I'm not shooting only a couple of clips, I'm gonna wanna use an SSD drive so I don't quickly fill up my phone. Either way, having an SSD drive is the best way to keep all the clips in one place. One more negative I just remembered is that the only way to play back the clips you filmed on your SSD is not through the camera app, even though you can view the shots you have there, but you have to go through the Files app. That's where you can replay the shots you filmed, which I was confused about at first, and maybe I'm wrong that is the only way, but it hasn't worked for me to view the clips in the camera app unless I didn't film with the SSD connected. Now that seems a bit strange to me. But overall, I think shooting on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is an amazing camera system to start out with if you're looking to become a filmmaker in any capacity. The huge file sizes might draw away some beginners though, so I'd really consider that if you're thinking about getting this to start out. I've really been enjoying getting quick clips on the go and knowing the shots have the ability to look like it's not shot on a phone. I definitely will be using this more as a B camera to my Sony a7 IV, and I think for me it was worth the upgrade. But this might not be for you, so make sure you take everything into consideration that I mentioned in this video. If you enjoyed what I had to say about this new iPhone, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.